Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time, as always, and spending it right here with us on NAC TV. I'm Eoin Devereux, news reporter with the Banner Press, welcoming you, as always. And joined, pretty much as always, by Casper Wehrhahn. Casper, good to have you back in again this week.
Thanks for having me here. It's good to be on for another episode.
We need to get some special guest stars on here. You know, as TV shows go on in years, they start bringing in specials or new characters and all that. I think that's what we need to do with this show. You know, bring in an adorable child actor or something like that, or the new cool character, or just
spice things up a bit.
Yeah. Exactly. It worked for the Brady Bunch. It worked for Happy Days. These are all shows from way before your time, Casper. But. Well, hopefully you'll be enthralled by just the straight news that we've got for you in this week's edition of the newspaper. And holy cow, honestly, and I said this to a few of my coworkers, I said this to Casper as we were putting this together, genuinely, we've been on a pretty good roll when it comes to news content in the papers this year. But this week's edition, quite honestly, might be the very best that we've had in 2023. We have a organization, the Manitoba Community Newspapers Association, we are a part of. Every year they give out awards. And if they pick this one to sort of judge us by, I would not mind at all, quite honestly. It's just that good. And the reason I bring this up is, first off, a story I worked on the front page, and a story Ken Waddell was able to get for us. So I'm going to start off, in fact, with Ken's story. Neepawa to get another school. A new school is going to be coming to Neepawa. Ken Waddell was able to read between the lines of a press release that came out just after we went to publication last week. Province announcing new schools, additional schools are going to be put up throughout the province. One of them is set for Beautiful Plains School Division, which is, of course, where Neepawa is situated. Press release itself, however, did not say where it was going to be put. But Ken Waddell, you know, he doesn't do it too often, but when he puts his riding hat on and he wants to chase down the details, and he wants to chase down that lead, he's able to do it pretty efficiently still. He was able to get the details, he was able to get the information, and a confirmation that that school is going to be right here in Neepawa. And God, Casper, it is so, we just had the new middle school a couple years ago, but it's already desperately needed another one.
It really is. It's mentioned in the story, but with the addition of the middle school, obviously that brought some alleviation for a time, but now we're actually already over capacity again in our schools. We're just bringing in that many more people into our education system. Neepawa is a growing town, very quickly growing one, it seems, as of late. So this sort of development so soon is like understandable, but also still kind of a shock. It really sort of sinks in, I think.
You bring up a very valid point there, Casper. The first time I ever was here in Neepawa, for consistent viewers of the show, you know, I came here to work for a radio station in 2010, coming out of Brandon. And even in those 13 years, I went away for a time, worked in Bourges-la Prairie, came back again. But in that time, this community has changed, has blossomed, has expanded to such a shocking degree. And I can't even imagine for an individual who has lived here for much longer than that, who's lived here their entire life, just to see how things have changed. And it's a lot of what's going on right now really is for the better. The new hospital, the new middle school that's been built, the new housing developments, much needed housing developments happening on the former CN property, the new water and sewer, which is so desperately needed as well. With an expansion in the population, you need an expansion in the system to be able to handle it. And they've been able to do that. So another school, and this one, a specialty school, as it were, the way they phrased it is a vocational school. Now, I wasn't 100% familiar with that because, Casper, where I went to school, up north in Thompson, we were a city at the time of we had about 16, 17,000 when I was going to school. So our high school had everything we needed. We had the auto shop, we had the woodworking, we had the metal shop, we had the housekeeping, the homemaking. We had all that already. But I guess what a vocational is those elements of it. And I got to admit, because when I went to school, that's the way my school was, I just assumed naturally every school was like that.
Right, yeah, and NACI definitely has those sorts of things. You know, they have a metal shop and the woodworking, and they have a home ec classroom. But, you know, if we can get all this stuff sorted out and you know, people more, I guess, comfortably accommodated in the school. There's space, but like, you know, we're growing.
Space,
we're
but
growing.
There's not.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to find like good wording for that because I don't want to like shortchange the schools or anything. But yeah, we're pretty tight there. So you know, to have a sort of specialized educational facility for that, and to better spread out the different gradings between the buildings for the students, that would be fantastic.
This is going to be a developing story, most obviously, over the next few years. And in terms of a location, we don't know an official location as of yet. We don't know an official start time for the construction as of yet. But once we find out this information, we are going to be so ecstatic to be able to share that information with you. So that's the story. It's on the front page, along with another story that I worked on, which around this time last week, I figured this obviously, Casper, is going to be the front page. It's going to be standalone front page. But then the high school thing came down. It's like, oh, okay, I guess you're going to get bumped. But the only reason, again, a little peek behind the curtain, we're back there, a little peek behind the curtain, is that the only reason really that this high school one didn't stand on its own on the front page is because there was no visual to go with it. There's no location we can confirm right now, so we couldn't go out to that property and take a picture of the land. We didn't want to do a generic high school picture, you know, of a locker or a classroom. That's not very compelling in the grand scheme of things, and it doesn't tell the local stories, but we still wanted to feature this story prominently. So we had the home hardware story on the front page as well, which is another significant step forward for the town of Neepawa. The expansion of that business, it's been committed to our community for so long, and they've expanded into their new building. We've talked about it many a time right here on the show. We've talked about it many a time in the newspaper. I was able to go, this picture on the front page is taken the day before their official opening. They were still shining up the floor, making it look all glossy and all that. They were still making sure everything was just set perfectly so. And it was amazing. Casper, I gotta say, it's about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago, that I was in there and I got some pictures and we had it in the new Neepawa Banner Press. And just the difference, obviously, was just amazing to me. So it was great to see.
Yeah, I haven't been in there yet myself, but definitely looking at the photos that Eoin took in the past, with a lot of work still going on, might I add. And then seeing it now is really impressive. Like, that happened so quickly, and I'm just astonished, honestly.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I had a chance to speak with Michelle Gerard, the co-owner and operator of Neepawa Home Hardware. There is new ownership as well. It's in the story that is partnered with them on this. Very pleased to be able to showcase it. They're sort of silent partners, as it were. They step away. They let Michelle take care of all the day-to-day operations. Let the person with the experience, let the person with the knowledge do their job. That's the way they look at it. And Michelle, obviously, still a co-owner. The Gerards still co-owners of it. And if you want to find out a little bit more, you can find the picture and the story on page 1 of this week's edition of the Banner Press. Continues on to page 2 of this week's edition. And that brings up another thing. We were just talking about just before we went on the air. I'm very amped about this week's edition of the paper. I think it's one of the better ones we've done in a long time, which is saying something because I think we've been on a heck of a roll as of late, to toot our own horn. The only slight negative was the lack of space on our color pages. Where we print out of, we're only able to print what they say is 2 plates. 2 plates equals 4 pages. So or 1 plate equals 4 pages, 2 plates equals 8 pages. So in a 20 or 24 page paper, we're only able to print 8 pages color. That's just the reality of it. And we had so many interesting pictures and stories and dynamic things we wanted to showcase. But the amount of ads we had that were color, as well as our Farmer's Advocate, which we're going to get into a little bit later in the show, that took up so much of the color that we had hardly any space for the stories and color pictures to go with it. Now, you know me. If you're a consistent viewer of the show, you know me when it comes to news versus commerce on here. I understand the need for commerce. I understand the need to be able to sell the ads, to pay for the paper, to pay for the reporters, to be able to cover the stories. I understand that. And I'm actually a little more relaxed about it than I was maybe 5-6 years ago. But it's still nice to be able to tell the story completely on a color page. Like there's 1 or 2 stories, like for example, your Castleman one coming up later on in the show. I really wish we could have put that on a color page in the grand scheme of things. And in a different week, we probably would have been able to, but it just didn't play out that way. It is what it is. Like, don't get me wrong. Any sponsors, any supporters who support the paper by buying advertising, we do appreciate that very much. So thank you very much. It's just one of my little things. I want the paper to be perfect, but it is what it is. Like
it just happens to be one of those things where it's just like, shoot, we wish we could put this on color, but we have to work with how the pages sort of piece together. And accountants with the ads as well. So it happens sometimes. We have to put something we perhaps want on color onto black and white, and we just do with it what we can, and it comes out pretty good either way. So
that's right, and we still get that news to you in a prompt and consistent manner. So that's our front page. Carries on into the paper, as we said. We've got a couple other things on the go here. This was a jam-packed paper. We can't even, in the half hour we have for the story behind the stories, we can't even begin to scratch the surface of all the local, notable stories that we have. So we try and drive through these as best we can. Next one, I'm not going to go into too many details about. It's just the strategic plan for the town of Neepawa. Every few years, council has to sort of review it, see what they've done right, see what they need to do moving ahead for the next couple years. This strategic plan for the town of Neepawa is for 2023 through to 2026. The goals they hope to achieve, some of the items they hope to be able to check mark off over the next few years. You can find it on page 8 of this week's edition of the newspaper. And I'll be honest with you, I'm like, strategic plans, for the most part over the years, they're kind of dry. They're kind of like, they use college words, really, when they can just say it. Just say what you want to do. We want to make sure the town is safe, as opposed to using all those fancy words, Casper.
$10 word when you can use a $2.
Exactly. My brain, the hamster falls asleep from time to time, and he has to catch up. But, I tried to simplify it down, the 5 priorities for the town of Neepawa moving ahead. I'll just give it to you really quickly. Well-balanced growth. To dumb it down for you a little bit, they understand the town's getting big. There's a lot of people coming in here, and they've got to be able to grow with that population boom in a sustainable and economically feasible way. Well, that was a bit of a college word right there as well, wasn't it? Next up, sustainability stewardship. Essentially making sure the water supply is still what it needs to be. Nobody misses the water supply or worries about the water supply until something goes wrong. And then what do you got? You got something.
Got a bit of a situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Economic stability and prosperity. They want to bring business to Neepawa. We want to be more than a one-horse town, or maybe in this phrase, a one-hog town, with all due respect to High Life. Wonderful, supportive local business. But we want to make sure that we are a community that is diversified, that we have different things we can get and be sustainable. The other item, fiscal responsibility. Who the heck's going to pay for all this? I know your taxes are probably up there. If I paid taxes, they'd probably be up there as well. All right, Canada Revenue, let me just explain that. I rent, so that's why I'm not with the taxes. I still pay my fair share, Mr. Auditor Man. Please don't call me.
There's nothing required on the property. That's someone else's deal.
Exactly. They want to make sure that with this growth, with this development, you're not paying all that amount. I mean, who would want that bill each and every year? That's a tough one. So they try and keep it relatively within the confines to make it sustainable for everyone. And the last one, a safe and healthy community. That one goes without saying. So that's their plan. If you want a little more specifics, you can find it in the paper. I'll be honest with you, I like a lot of the things they were saying. In the grand scheme, though, I would love more for infrastructure in terms of development on the roads. That's the only downside I find, Casper. They've done a great job with the water and sewer. They've done a great job with getting the housing set up, going. The roads stink. Again, and they do the best they can with what they have to work with. But
Yeah, that's definitely an unfortunate thing. Like, you know, obviously you have to prioritize, and it's not that roads aren't important. They are. You need to have good roads. You know, there's a lot of people commuting in and out of town, just going to their jobs or what have you, and yeah, just some roads get really rough in town and perhaps don't get addressed for a while for one reason or another. And the main drag in town in particular is a tough one because that's technically under Department of Highways, because that used to be a highway, isn't anymore. I think it used to be Highway 4?
Yes, I think we talked about that in a recent episode. Yeah, I think you might be right.
Yeah, and then of course just, you know, we had the repaving of Davidson, which took a while for, you know, a few different reasons, weather, et cetera. Done now, it's great.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the thing. Once it's done, it's fantastic.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I don't want to blame the town of Neepawa for this. They've done a great job. There's outside forces. As Casper said, some of these roads are under the jurisdiction of the province of Manitoba. And quite honestly as well, they contract out because they don't have all the equipment here in Neepawa to be able to do that road repair. So they've got to hire a company. And quite honestly, as great as Neepawa is in terms of growth and development, we're not on the top of the list for some of these companies. They're going to go to Brandon. They're going to go to Winkler. They're going to go to Steinbach. Do the work there first because they're going to be able to cut the bigger check most likely. It is what it is. I'm going off on a different tangent here. You know me. I like to do that. Keeps it interesting. But the strategic plan is laid out. You can find out a little bit more in this week's paper. You can also find out a little bit more about a recent information session that went on. It was in regards to the one-time nursing program that is going to be coming to Neepawa. It's going to be here in January 2024. And they had an information session. It was groups from the town of Neepawa, from Prairie Mountain Health, I forget the name of the group right now off the top of my head. I have to look at my story to refresh myself. Neepawa Settlement Services, yes, and Assiniboine Community College. There were reps from all those groups. They got together. They had an information session. And boy, was it jam-packed. Over 100 people came into the Legion, and they wanted to learn a little bit. And boy, did they ever. It was a little dry, I'll be honest with you. You know, it was a little bit of, doing your homework type thing. But for those people that are interested in getting involved in the program, it was so valuable, this information, Casper. It was really great.
Yeah, this is definitely something that was excellent to see. Of course, many people know that there is a medical staff shortage, and that's been an issue for quite a while now. But to see the number of people that are interested in pursuing this program and learning more about it, I think that speaks volumes. Like, there's definitely people out there that are passionate about this and want to pursue it, and that'll definitely be a benefit to everyone.
What was interesting as well, there were a few people who asked questions from the audience, and their questions were directly related to how their current existing education, not just regular high school or post-secondary, but nursing education from their time in Philippines, is going to be able to translate over to the ACC program. There are multiple people in Neepawa right now who have this type of background who can't work that job. It's just the reality of the situation. But they want to take the proper education and be able to do that, something they learned in their home, and bring it to their new home. So hopefully that'll be able to move forward in a positive manner. You know what? In and around the same time this meeting was going on, Casper, you were at an event at the Yellowhead Center, were you not?
Yes, I was. It was a fantastic event. I was there for the first half. I had some other things to get to in the second half, but the Neepawa Figure Skating Club held their season end wind up. So they held a great series of performances at the Yellowhead Arena there, all sort of Disney on Ice themed. So there was a variety of performances from everyone involved with the club, including a regional synchro team, which was fantastic, by the way. All to different songs that have been used in Disney media. And yeah, it was just an outstanding performance by everyone. There was some very sort of signature performances with, well-known songs. Be Our Guest as one of them from Beauty and the Beast. And yeah, just a very good variety. There was some really cute performances as well from the younger kids, the Can Skate group, I believe it was, that we don't have pictured on page 11 there. But yeah, it was just incredible, and it looked like everyone there enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's right. You can find all those pictures, as Casper said, page A11. We actually got it split into an A section and a B section, and insert for the Farmer's Advocate 4 pages of farm-related, ag-related news that you can find in this week's edition. And you can find those pictures on figure skating on A11. I want to go over this really quick. I got to send a shout out, very appreciative to Portage Online, Golden West Broadcasting, my old stomping grounds in Portage La Prairie, CFRY Radio. There was an event at the exact same time as the nursing information session, at the exact same time as the Neepawa figure skating year-end event. And because we're the only 2 reporters, for the most part, for the newspaper, a third event happening at the exact same time, that turns into an impossibility to be able to cover, especially when it was way out in Westburn. But fortunately, it is within the catchment area of CFRY Radio, and we were able to, common courtesy among media, we put a call out, said, hey, you guys, were you there? Yeah, we were. Can we use some of your information? We'll give you full accreditation. Yeah, go ahead. They've done it for us. I've sent them pictures and news stories in the past. So very appreciative of them. My former co-workers at CFRY Radio and Portage Online for sending us this story about Westburn and some issues some of the people there are having related to a construction plan, a new proposed road setup through that area, through that community. There's not too many people that seem all that happy about it right now. So Mike Bloom's the individual who did that report out of Portage La Prairie, very appreciative of that. It's just on the edge of our sort of readership area. We still wanted to cover it though, so great for that. You can find that on page A7. I think I'll let it speak for itself, Casper, because me trying to go in on that, it wouldn't do it the justice it probably deserves. So, plus, I want to put some extra time in here. We got about 5 minutes left, and I want to give that to you on this story. You got this from Chris Waddell. She came through with this sort of tidbit or news tip, right?
She did, yeah. She brought this to my desk, and it was a very sort of interesting one to get into. I was hoping to get a bit more background. Unfortunately, wasn't able to of the person's time here. But Jewel Castleman, currently from Winnipeg, but formerly from Neepawa, she's a teacher spanning a career of 34 years. Very impressive. Actually won an award at the Junos this year. She got the Music Counts Teacher of the Year award for 2023, and got that recognition there. And it's just incredible. I was learning about all of the different things that she's done throughout her career, and it really is just incredible to see the effort that she's put in and the changes that she's brought to education there. And for that to come from someone who used to be in Neepawa and gained education here, that's something to be very proud of, I feel.
That's right. And again, for those of you who may not be in the know on this, Juno Awards, of course, are Canada's national event celebrating musical artists from all over, professional musicians, songwriters, the producers, the whole 9 yards. It's our version of the Grammys, so it's great to be able to see somebody from our community represented there and to be singled out in that way, because it is so important. Although music nowadays, God, you kids in your loud music, you don't know real music.
You youngins and your dubstep and what have you.
Music peaked in 1992, gosh darn it. And you can't tell me otherwise. Oh, but no, it's great, and I'm very glad that you were able to get that. And as you said, this is something that we might be able to follow up on at a future date. Who knows? We love to be able to celebrate people who are local or were local and their significant milestones through the years. And this is definitely one of them. So there's so much more, honestly, we could get into. As I said earlier, we have the Farmers Advocate, 4 pages this month, focused on ag-related items. Our front page is the Matthew Atkinson, the president of the Manitoba Beef Producers, talking about the year ahead. There's other stories in-house we could have done. Casper's story about a job fair that's going to be happening in Minnedosa in the near future. My story about the Minnedosa Bombers of the Tiger Hills Hockey League really going to battle against the Minnesota Seahawks in the Tiger Hills Hockey League Championship. We could go in depth into a story that was submitted to us about the William Morton Collegiate University Girls basketball team, the great season they had, or the season the Neepawa Titans had. These are just some of the stories that we just didn't have time to be able to discuss. And that's why it's always important for you to be able to pick up a copy of the Neepawa Banner Press. Hopefully you pick up a physical version of it anywhere in Neepawa or outlying communities, or you can find it online at mywestman.ca. Usually it'll go live every Friday morning on the website, so you can check it out on mywestman.ca. So if you have any story suggestions for us, or anything along those lines, you can always get in touch with us over at news@neepawabanner.com or at 476-3401, the number you can reach us at. If you have a letter, if you have a thumbs up, a thumbs down about any sort of events going on in or around Neepawa, you can always forward them our way. You can either phone them in and they'll take care of it at the front desk and bring them back to us, or you can email them to us at the email I gave you right there. So anything like that, it is always appreciated. So other than that, you're going to have to check out this edition of the paper, because as I said, this one is going to be pretty darn impressive once you have a look at it. 24 pages, 20 pages for the A section, 4 pages for the Farmers Advocate. This is one of those ones that you look at and it's like, God, I wish this could last a couple weeks. I wish we could coast next week, but we can't do that, can we?
Unfortunately, no.
No, but we're gonna try again next week and do the best we can. And hopefully you'll check it out, and you'll check this out right here on NAC TV, the story behind the stories. Have another great week.